right. If I could get 40 minutes on the clock, thank you. So our presentation now is about mice, not the little rodents, but meetings, incentives, conventions, and events. Often the C in that acronym is for conferences, and often the E in events is also E for expos. It represents one of the most powerful, loyal, and influential segments of our global tourism economy. From fraternities and sororities to cultural festivals, religious conventions, corporate incentive groups, legacy expos, these audiences not only book in huge numbers, but they leave deep economic imprints, as Connie Kennard mentioned in the previous session. At this time, I'd like to welcome my panel, Mr. Bernard Bronner, president of Bronner Brothers Hair Show and publisher of Upscale Magazine. Thank you. Ms. Kendra Bullock, executive director of the Orange Blossom Classic, hosted in Miami, Florida. Velton Showell, chair, International Site Selection Committee of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Incorporated. Wilfred Mullings, deputy director of sales and marketing for Bahamas Air. Ms. Julia Bowleg-Gay, MICE specialist, group sales Southeast, West Coast, and Texas from Bahamas Ministry of Tourism, Investments, and Aviation. So this panel will bring together leaders talking about everything from group travel, airlift, event production, destination marketing, and really servicing to give you a bird's eye view and some great data for you to make your decisions moving forward about curating experiences for groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Am I missing me? Kendra.
How are you?
Is she here? Okay. So I'll leave that seat for her. So I'm going to have a seat. Mr. Bronner, let me go next to you so I can look that way. Thank you. All right. I like to sit. Makes my life great. All right, so why does this conversation matter? You've heard us talk about the numbers. There is an interesting statistic. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated made history in 2013, and they set a Guinness World Record for the largest single meeting in Washington, D.C. ever. 40,000 attendees all served dinner simultaneously during our Centennial Convention, generating tens of millions in local economic impact. If you saw the Deltas while we were out with the sorors this year, we turned DC up. Everywhere you went, TikTok, Snapchat, everyone was talking about the economic impact that events like this host. So I want to talk first, and Bernard, I want to call you Mr. Bronner so bad. You have the Bronner Brothers Hair Show, which has set the standard of what that event is. How have you sustained consistent attendance and constantly reinvented the fact that you go to destinations all the time with that hair show?
Great question. The first thing that I've run the hair show for the last 40 years now, and not just the Atlanta hair show, but I have gone to hair shows and other events all over the world. So I've done hair shows in Dubai, hair shows in London, hair shows in Australia, hair shows in Africa, hair shows all over, with one goal in mind. If I could get to the other hair shows and find one thing that they're doing better than we were, to bring that back and get it implemented. So 40 years ago when I took over the second generation of Bronner Brothers, and we are now, this is year 78 for Bronner Brothers.
That is amazing.
That's awesome. So my job was to, like I say, run the hair show, but not only just run the hair show. With Bronner Brothers, we were very proud to have a lot of #1 products. Right now we have the #1 Spritz Pump It Up. We have the #1 lotions in African Royale Hot 6 oil. We make the #1 braid spray in African Royale. So in promoting those products, I went to every event that I knew of. So I went to every sorority, every fraternity. I went to the nurses' convention, the doctors' convention, the pilots' convention, any kind of place that I knew there was going to be a gathering. We were there with a booth selling Bronner Brothers products and hair show tickets and upscale magazine subscriptions to build our business. And I just felt like it kept us close to the community. So your father didn't give me any notice. He told me when I got here I was on a panel, so I don't have anything prepared.
Oh,
but I do have the
got it.
40 years of experience to answer questions from the audience.
Okay, fabulous. So for those who don't understand economic impact, what is the number of attendees you anticipate getting, and how many vendors do you have that usually are at your trade show?
We have done, before pandemic, we've done 40, 50,000 people at a show. We've had 300 to 400 vendors at a hair show. And just like most black people, they don't count us right. So it's very difficult to get actual numbers due to bias.
So in the room, we have lots of different destinations. We have lots of different destinations. We have that would love to host 400 vendors. And how many attendees?
From 30 to 50,000.
Oh, 50,000. So with that, you need airlift to get to that destination. You need hotel rooms, you need convention space, and all of that translates to economic impact.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I will move on to then you, to the bruh, Velton, Shoel. So tell us, what is Omega Psi Phi when you are hosting everything from conclaves to international conventions? What do those numbers look like when you are selecting sites and countries to go to?
Well, our conclave is our largest event, and most recently we were in Tampa last year. We had 8,400 registered delegates. Room nights, well, we peaked at about 2,300, but the economic impact was about, in 5 days, $20 million to the economy of Tampa.
$20 million, and that's because 8,400 people were registered, but how many queues were in the building in Tampa hanging out?
Oh, about 20,000.
Oh, that part. Oh,
Yeah,
fabulous. So
that's-
what are you looking for with site selection? Because not only are you considering the 8,400 registered delegates, but you're considering events for the 20,000 people who are coming to town.
Well, our RFP begins with, you must have at least 2,000 rooms within walking distance of the convention center. And that's primarily due to the fact that we try to reduce our expenses with transportation. And if we have those 2,000 rooms as a core, then we know that the other brothers are either going to stay at Airbnbs with somebody they know, or peripheral hotels that are less expensive than the core hotels in the block. Destination-wise, we look for a destination that gives us the opportunity to experience what they have, but what I just said is we have 20,000 African-American males, some of whom bring their spouses with them, and we want a destination that is attractive to them. What is the destination going to do to make it appealing? What kind of events, what kind of restaurants, and so forth and so on. I'll give you, for instance, one destination that was bidding will remain nameless, but when I say what they told me, you'll kind of get an idea of where they were. They were telling me that they wanted to bid on a conclave. They have rodeos and hoedowns. Now, I don't know about you, but that wasn't attractive to me and not attractive to most of my brothers. So I was like, what do you have that would be attractive to 20,000 African-American males? Rodeos and hoedowns aren't going to do it. Okay? And
Unless it's Bill Pickett.
God rest his soul. There is the black cowboys, and I understand that, but
You're not the bros.
and my brothers are very rambunctious. So if they don't have something to do, they're going to find something to do. So that's really important for us. And then you touched on airlift. How do we get in and out of there? What's the expense of getting in and out of that destination? Is it drivable? Because a lot of our brothers drive, and they make it a family vacation. We're not as large as the Deltas, who by the way, keep breaking their own record because they have held that record for many, many years. The largest sit-down banquet since the 80s. But anyway, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. And you used an acronym. So, of course, from the academic side, RFP, a request for proposal. That is usually the number one issue that a planner faces, is that working with the client to determine what all is going to be needed for the convention 2-3 years in advance, to send out to multiple destinations to determine who's a great fit. And where DMOs and CVBs often get the problem is they don't respond. So then they wonder, well, why didn't Omega come to my city? Well, we sent you an RFP 3 years ago, and now you're getting back to me 6 months before my event. Thank you. So do you find that with that process, that automatically Velton narrows, gets people out of the running?
Yes, in a couple of respects. There's a new trend underway. I'm an old head. I've been in the business for a few years. But what I'm finding with the newer sales force is everything's a text or a fax or an email. Nobody picks up the phone and calls anybody anymore. That's number one. Number two, the response time is very, very slow. And as you said, you don't respond in time. And because of our meetings are so large, the first response that you're going to do is to your CVB. And if the CVB doesn't have you in the package, getting in later is much more difficult, or the economic opportunity for you when you come in later is less because we've spread a lot of the things out to those hotels that are primarily part of the block for that time period. So, response is extremely important, and factual information, be accurate. We need to know your numbers. We don't want you to tell us something up front, and then when we get down to brass tacks, it's something different.
Oh, that is key. And when you say 20,000 attendees, or you say 50,000 attendees with Bonner Brothers, you have destinations like the Bahamas that are like, okay, do I have convention space that hosts that? So I'm out of the running, maybe. But then there are so many small events that your executives have. The Bonner Brothers has been to the Bahamas several times on the smaller side of it. And I'm sure you'd love to go back, right?
We did a seminars by the sea in the Bahamas and the Atlantis, and we were up to almost 1,000 attendees from the U.S. But after they made the change of needing passports, the number fell in half. So that we to this day have not been able to figure out how to get around that phenomenon that happened.
Well, I know a young lady who might be able to help you with that. Her name is Julia Bowleg-Gay. So, Julia, when it comes to that, it has been a few years since the passport implementation has come about, and you have groups that will reach out to say, hey, I want to host something. What does Bahamas Tourism do to position itself as a destination that is group-friendly to attract groups like this?
Can you repeat that again?
What does the Bahamas do to attract a group like this and indicate that you are group-friendly to accommodate people who maybe haven't been to the Bahamas in years with their group or never been to the Bahamas? What does the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism do to show you are group-friendly?
Well, again, going back to the RFP, we look at numbers, we look at which hotel can accommodate. We reach out to those hotels, we do the connection with the planner, It's about having a great fit, and so that's how we go about it.
And that makes it interesting because you have a MICE department, a groups department. What do you do to assist in showing itineraries or things they can do that show Bahamian culture?
Well, again, we have the conversation. So we look at every situation, we look at every type of event, and we try to, create or craft that experience. And so it's a lot of communication with the planner back and forth, and we also try to ensure that they are getting the immersive experience that they would want. We have, my trend of thought is just going crazy. We have dedicated persons, again, who would sit down and go over what it is that they need. Even before that, they can go to our website. We have loads of sample itineraries that would help them, to determine what it is that they would want their attendees to participate in or experience.
Thank you for that, Julia. I think that's important to have boots on the ground. Pardon the pun. Let me get my fan right there. To be able to make and execute that. Wilfred, as well with Bahamas Air, I've seen Bahamas Air really succeed in moving people, not only who may want to do the big conference in New Providence, but they may want to have some other islands for inter-island travel. Can you talk a little bit how Bahamas Air works with groups on that aspect?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me on the panel, first of all. And what better way to get to the Bahamas, ladies and gentlemen, than flying on our national flag carrier, which is Bahamas Air. We've been in existence since 1973. We are celebrating our 52nd year, and we're moving in the right direction. So to answer your question, PJ, flying out of our Florida gateways, which is Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and even to one of our family islands where we have direct services from West Palm Beach into Marsh Harbor. Nassau being our hub, we have the ability to take you to any one of our major family islands, whether it's taking you to Exuma to swim at the beach for the day, take you to Eleuthera to enjoy the beautiful pink sand beaches that are in Eleuthera, or if you enjoy ecotourism, where you could take you down south into the Michael area, Inagua, Mayaguana, and San Salvador, and those places. So we have the ability to cater to all group needs once they get to the Bahamas, or they're connecting through Florida, Bahamas Air. We have a designated group department who takes care of all of your travel plans. So we are there to facilitate the needs and meet them as best as we can.
Thank you. One of the things that we've definitely touched upon is size of the group, knowing where that fits. And when we look, Kendra, at the Orange Blossom Classic, tell us about what that event is about for those who are not familiar, and how it has been handling things like room blocks, working with the Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau to get an event like that on the U.S. side because of its size.
So the Orange Blossom Classic is an HBCU football game that's played here in Miami at the Hard Rock Stadium. And the unique thing about the Orange Blossom Classic is annually we may see a different group of individuals. So Bronner Brothers, for example, you have probably recurring individuals, and I'm saying that because I'm from North Carolina, so I grew up attending Bronner Brothers hair shows, and literally, when I saw that you were on the panel, it took me all the way back to like my Dudley product days. My family's in hair care, so not dating myself, but I'm glad you said it was 78 years in existence. But typically, you will have recurring visitors. With us, we have individuals annually that come from different areas of wherever our HBCUs are placed. So for example, this year we have Howard University, so we'll see an influx of individuals from the DMV. The first thing that you do, of course, is you carve out an experience that fits your demographic and where your individuals are coming from. With us, we didn't start the conversations with the CVB. We brought the game back in 2021. So we didn't start the conversation with the CVB in 2021. We started conversations, and they'll tell you, as early as 2019 to say, how do we plan and prepare for this event in order to make it a partnership? And one thing that I can say about the CVB is they do believe in partnerships. It is not just a conversation that we have when it's time to book hotels. It's an ongoing conversation throughout the year about how we can not only partner to get people into hotels, but how do we build an experience first that will entice people to come here and stay. Also knowing that we're in the city of Miami, Miami Gardens and the Miami Beach, all of the surrounding areas, the perception is that because our game is held on Labor Day weekend, it is very expensive to come to Miami. So we have to work together to create rates that will entice people to be here. We have to work together to work with airlines, work with the resources that they have in order to assist us with getting the best rates to encourage people to be here. And I think that's, you know, it's a win-win for both. It's really a partnership. The greater the experience that we can create, the more affordable the experience that we can create, the greater amount of opportunities we have to bring more people, the greater the economic impact. And then when I go sit in their office and have conversations about funding, it goes a lot easier. So it's a 360-degree partnership. But it's really, again, working with our visitors bureaus, working with our governmental entities very early on, and not looking at the overall event experience as something totally separate from your hotel packages and separate from even your travel packages. So I was just in the Bahamas a couple of weeks ago. We're advertising in the Bahamas. So you go where your people are. We have, the Bahamas has a huge base of HBCU alum. And so we're advertising there to say, hey, you come over here, it's a 30-minute flight. Now let's get these people from the DMV who ordinarily would not think about going to the Bahamas. Let's grab them while they're here for the weekend and say, hey, why not finish off your Labor Day weekend in the Bahamas? So it's partnerships and encouraging everyone to work together for the overall experience.
Thank you for that, Kendra. And when you talk about economic impact, because we want to know the numbers, how many seats do you sell traditionally to the game itself?
So it depends on the year. We have on average about 25,000. So we've had one year where we've had 10,000. We've had another year where we've had 40,000. So going between 21 and 25, from 2021 to 2025, I'd say about average of 25 to 30,000. And we've seen our economic impact through this event hit as high as $35 million.
So $35 million to Miami in a weekend by your event.
Correct.
So I can see where the 129.7 billion starts to rack up, right? So when it comes with working with municipalities and advising them that people are coming to town, are there steps that you have to do in order, and I'll ask all three of the event coordinators about sponsorship and working with the municipalities. How was that relationship? I'll start with you, Kendra, and we'll work our way back.
So again, having conversations early, you know, you want to jump in before the budgets are being planned. Data is king. You want to have data to support the spending habits, that actually document the spending habits of the people that you're bringing in. And you want to have historical data to talk about your event. So with us, again, starting in 2021, it was a unique situation because we were just coming off of COVID. And there was a need. We're in Florida, tourism is a big business. So tourism was down, and it was kind of risky. And again, that's why I'm grateful for these type of partnerships, because now you have to say to your municipalities, hey, we need you to put a financial infusion into this event, because not only is it going to help the event, but it is going to help overall what our tourism industry looks like. Now we can get people back into hotels. And so just basically having real conversations that is going to really play up the value of your event to make it understandable to them why it's important to invest in this event and why they're going to see a return on investment into that event. and having those conversations. I can't stress enough having the conversations early. It's just like anyone. If you call me 2 days after payday and asked to borrow $20, you probably should have called me before, maybe on that Tuesday,
Yes.
before Friday, before I went out for the weekend.
Right.
So having conversations early enough to get in the budget and to justify the reason for the spend.
And that is so true. I would say, with Julia, that would be something that you often hear when you're having people say they want to bring a group to the Bahamas. There are a list of things and requirements that you would want to see in order to know, is ministry interested in being a participant, sponsoring a Junkanoo Rush, or monetary, or helping you advertise in the airport? What are some of the things that you ask groups that they need to provide you so you can take it up the chain for consideration to support?
Well, we have so much interest right now, and the first thing I would ask is that what it is that you need us to do. So if they tell us what it is that they need us to do, it'll give us, some thought to be able to take back to our executive. And as Kendra has said, it's all about budget planning and having the conversation early on so that we're prepared to meet you wherever it is that we need to meet you. And we find that oftentimes that a lot of people bypass the CVB. They go to the hotel, do their event planning, and I think somewhere in the middle when they get stuck, they come to us and it's a little bit too late because, hey, the budget would have already passed. And so if we see that we can get a good return on investment, of course that goes a little bit higher above our heads. And so if we have a strong case, if we have a strong justification, if it's in our off-shoulder period, I'd say you have a great chance of getting the heirs that need to hear you respond actively and quickly.
That's important. And oftentimes you're talking about, as Velton mentioned, 2 years out, you're planning. Is it that when you're going to look for the venue, you really heavily rely on the CVB to direct you for the hotels in walking distance and manage that relationship, Velton? Or do you reach out directly, and how does that relationship work when you're talking about that 2 year in advance, 3 year in advance window?
Well, it's interesting you say 2 or 3 years. Actually, I'm about to go to Washington, D.C. to plan 2036.
So you are planned all the way up to 2035?
We're currently planned to 2030. So, but 2026 or 2036 will be our 125-year anniversary. And one of the things that you have to understand is the booking cycle of the destination that you're looking for. Washington, D.C. is a destination that books 7 to 10 years out. So we have a 2-week window in July for this conference. So we need to make sure that we can get in that 2-week window because of our constituency. So we're now looking at 2036. But there's a couple of things. I mean, the booking cycle of the destination is paramount to your success. If you're talking about a first-tier city, a Chicago, a Miami, a New York, a Philadelphia, they book further out than some of the second and third-tier cities. So if your numbers dictate that you need a larger destination, you really need to start looking further out. When you talk about going to in the P word, the partnership, it begins with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and developing a relationship with the people there so that they can carry the message to their destination, these hotels, the convention center, and the other people that you're going to need to be successful. But first and foremost, you have to know your numbers. Mm-hmm. If you don't know your numbers, if you don't know your historical data and information, you're handcuffing yourself, and you're also handcuffing the CVB, because that's where the trust factor begins. If you know your numbers and you're consistently telling them over the last 3 to 5 years we've done this, and they can look it up and substantiate it, and they know that you're being accurate, then all of a sudden that partnership is that much stronger.
And the numbers, let me share some numbers. Just to give you an example, my father talked yesterday about how he and I worked with AHOA, the Asian American Hotel Owner Association, and they will be coming to Fort Lauderdale in 2028. So this is what the numbers look like. So pens down. Total registered attendees, 7,000. 524 exhibitors. This was their 2024 numbers. 84,000 square feet of booth space. 44 breakout sessions. 26 sponsors. 20,000 members in AHOA as an association. So when we were doing our RFP, people were surprised that we were walking into Lock-In 2028 because so many people think it's 2 years out, right? So they know, and 100% of the people who book hotel rooms in 23 booked hotel rooms in 2024 because they use a tool like Cvent to manage the event and keep track of the data to be able to spit out the RFP based on what's happening. So integrating those numbers, there were destinations that we shopped, and we sat here last year during the summit and met with several CVBs to try to get AHOA to find a partner with one of our supporting places. And that's how we ended up with Fort Lauderdale. But just the metrics alone, unfortunately, some places were out.
Sure, absolutely. We're right now in Detroit for our leadership conference, which is our smaller of the two. And the numbers there are growing fast. We're growing at a rate of about 4% every year. So our numbers are continually growing. We're going to use in Chicago about 2,800 rooms in 2028. But by the time we get to National Harbor in 2030, we'll be at about 3,000 rooms peak night. So that's what we're talking about from a growth standpoint. But knowing how you're going and how you're growing allows you to book further out and allows you to go into a destination with the confidence and the data that makes them confident that you know what you're talking about. Our RFP is for the conclave is 17 pages. Because we're not going to leave anything to chance.
Definitely. And Bernard, when you're talking about Bronner Brothers hair shows and what you're doing with Upscale Magazine as well, you know, we've talked about how to get the business, but you have destinations that you keep going to or places that you've repeated. You know, we know how to get the business. How do they keep your business and keep you coming back?
We're going back. During my father's day, he used to book hotels 10 years in advance. Since the pandemic, things have changed. The culture has changed. Technology has changed. It's so many things changed, and when things change, you have to change to stay relevant. So we don't book 10 years out anymore because we saw what happened to the pandemic, and we saw some of the cities putting clauses in that we couldn't cancel the show due to pandemic, so we had to deal with those kind of situations. But like I say, the technology changed, it was so much changing, then that's why my father had done a great job with integrating the next generation, and we've had to do the same thing because I couldn't keep up with the change in technologies. When it came to marketing, by the time I got my MySpace page, it was Facebook. And then when I got my Facebook, and now they just call them the TikTok generation. So I couldn't keep up with it. So we had to start understanding we had to have the next generation coming in who were glued. And when they first told me I had to be glued to my phone, I resisted. It took me 2 years to post for the first time. But the generation, the people that were coming to our show, everywhere they went, they had their phones in their hand. Everything they did, and one of the big decisions that I fought is we went from printing tickets, and I was like, we got to go out and sell I used to sell 15 to 20,000 advance tickets every show, and I was like, I don't stop till I got those tickets sold. Now, the new generation, they don't even print tickets. You scan it in with your phone, and you scan yourself in and out, and now they're getting it where you don't even have to scan. It's gonna have infrared that knows when you walk in, who it is, the data, it's. So when I used to communicate, it was totally different now. Now they text everybody, and instantly, thousands and thousands of people got a text on when the next hair show is. So because of the new generation, because of the changing, you have to, like I say, make sure that you stay current. And a lot of those reasons is why I'm able to hear now, because I got my kids and my nieces and nephews running things, and I could be here with you and your dad.
That's true.
While things are changing.
And you know, and there's such a great space for the meeting planner and the travel advisor to come in and help a client like you, or a branding or PR company to come in and help you, you know, get that event to the next level. And that, I think, is a missed opportunity. Oftentimes you hear, oh, travel agents are dead, nobody uses those anymore. And that's not true, because 60% of all travel is booked through a travel advisor. Because when you're talking about someone who's an expert in that niche, they can help you navigate what you don't know, because you don't know what you don't know, right? So I would definitely, let me go here to you, Wilfred. When it comes to these aligning yourself with planners like Velton or events like Bronner Brothers, what does Bahamas Air do to reach out to get those types of customers?
Well, what we do, and somebody mentioned partnerships. One of our greatest partners that we have, being Bahamas Air and being the national flag carrier, is the Ministry of Tourism. We work in tandem in regards to them having the interest from the groups coming to the Bahamas. They will always contact Bahamas Air to find out how best we can assist this group. It depends on the size of the group. There are many ways that we put it all together, like, for example, using our promo codes, which will make it seamless for the traveler to go on our website and book through the promo code. Or, like I mentioned earlier, we have a designated groups department who deals specifically with just tailoring these big groups coming to the Bahamas on Bahamas Air.
Thank you. So as we close, I would like final words. Is there anything special that any of you would like to add? I'll start with you, Kendra, with regard to maybe sponsorship or some of the things that you would want the crowd to take away about Orange Blossom Classic.
I think just overall from a tourism standpoint and from just executing large events, strategic planning is important. As we've said, early planning. Marketing is extremely important. Branding, that's a buzzword that a lot of people are kind of throwing around these days, but branding is important. And when you brand your events a certain way, it creates a desire for sponsors to want to be a part of the event. Another thing just, you know, that we've been fortunate over the last few years to have is title partnerships. You know, we had Denny's for the first few years of the Classic as a title partner. We just moved over now to Invesco QQQ. And so now we're having broader conversations. You know, we're not just talking about, hey, go get your Grand Slam. Now we're saying, what can you do as a partner to educate the community on financial literacy? So, you know, those are the main things that I think will help to drive revenue to your large events, sponsorships, relationships with your municipalities and your visitors bureaus, and just overall creation of a great experience.
Thank you for that. And Julia, any final closing thoughts to share with the audience about booking groups in the Bahamas?
I have to echo Kendra's sentiment. Early planning, sitting down and talking things through. The Bahamas is not just Nassau. We are a multi-destination, so exploring those 16 unique islands Um, we do have those islands that live in the MySpace or the multicultural space. Whatever it is that the ministry can assist with, early booking. So 2-3 years out, it gives us time to sit down and thoroughly look at what it is that we can do to help facilitate your business. If it is good, we want to, of course, re-engage you to bring your business back to the Bahamas. And so, yeah, it doesn't stop with Nassau. It's those 16 unique islands, and our tagline says it best. It's just not one island. It's a lifetime of them, and it's a lifetime of experiences. So when you think team building, when you think attraction, when you think uniqueness, all of these different islands have something so very unique. And so I'm going to say again, it's not one island. It's a lifetime of them. Why? Because it's better in the Bahamas.
All right. So, good commercial. So, as we close, Belton, is there anything special that you want to share?
Yeah. I'm looking around the room and I see a lot of young faces. The opportunity for us as a people moving forward is mentorship. We have some senior people in the room who've been in the industry for extended periods of time. We need to take the young people under our wing and teach them the things that we know, and sometimes the things that we may have forgotten. We talked about 2036 in my organization. By 2036, I'll be 78 years old. I want, and I am working on bringing someone along in our organization to do what I do. Because at 78 years old, I'm not going to be doing this anymore. But the bottom line is, as they say, each one teach one. We need mentorship for our next generation so they don't stumble on the things that we've already accomplished. So I implore everybody in the room, if you don't have a mentor, find one. If you're not mentoring somebody, you need to get with it, because that's what's going to take us to the next level in this industry.
All right. Wilfred?
Well, I would end just how I started. There's no better way in getting to the Bahamas than on Bahamas Air. And we are putting in the necessary work, keeping up with the technology to ensure that we meet the needs of the general public traveling to and from the Bahamas. We are there to help you explore the Bahamas, all the beautiful islands. As I mentioned earlier, our hub is based in Nassau, and my good friend Ms. Gay here is mentioning the fact that Nassau is not the Bahamas. We also have services through extending our reach now throughout the Caribbean. So Bahamas Air can take you wherever your group needs to come from. We have our equipment that we have flying for us right now, the Boeing 737 NG 700 series, can take you directly from Nassau to LAX, to all the way up as far as Canada, and further south to the east, Panama, you name it. We can tailor your packages for you and ensure that you are satisfied and be greeted with the warm, friendly services that you can only find in the Bahamas.
Thank you. And Bernard, final words on how do they get your business and you would like to share.
Final words is I got to get off this panel. I was supposed to be on a plane back to Atlanta. You got me want to go to a Bahamas air flight. The last thing I would say is keep learning. Always keep learning and building relationships by doing things like coming to conferences like this. Mr. Detley, who died a couple of years ago in North Carolina, in his funeral, one of the speakers were talking about how successful, and they love going to the Bronner Brothers shows, and why couldn't the big white companies duplicate it? And the speaker basically said when they talked to the customers, one of the things that they found out that over the years, Bronner Brothers had been in the community building relationships. And people came because of those built relationships. So today in these conferences, keep coming to these conferences. Keep building relationships. Keep learning. Keep listening to panels. Just don't let them take you only to Bahamas there now, because he got me ready to go back to the airport now, and I got to finish the rest of the conference. but that's my takeaway. Always keep learning and keep building relationships.
Thank you for that. Please give my esteemed panel a round of applause for your contribution on groups. So our next session will be on Chambers of Commerce and CVBs working together. So we'll take a quick break and come back with our next panel. Thank you so much.
Very nice to meet you, bro.
Yes.
And group photo. Group photo. So if my panelists could get mic'd, please, for the next session. Petra, Shahiwa, John, and Maxine, if you could head to the AV booth to get mic'd for the next session. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to set this room for lunch, so if you could please move next door to Tuttle. That's where we're going to be hosting the next panel, I think. Tuttle. Even though. So if y'all could all move swiftly, it's going to be next door. So for those attending the chamber session, please, if you could, move next door for me with CVBs, chambers, DMOs working together. Thank you for accommodating us. So you're gonna
Hey, John, we're getting ready to start next door. We're getting ready to start next door, the next session. Please move next door to the Tuttle room. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please clear the room? Woody, Wilfred, can you please clear the room? Oh, just hold on 1 second, Jerry. Can you please clear the room? Wilfred, I need you for a second. Algernon, Carlo. No, we don't know microphones. Please go next door to the Tuttle room. I need you. Carlo. They'll mic you next door. Sorry. We gotta clear the room. Give me 1 second.
For the 11 o'clock session? I don't know. The Zoom for downstairs. So I don't know why he moved everybody. It's a working lunch. We did it last year.
I just want to know.
But that's not going to be outside.
I just want to know with the 11:45
How are you
session,
gonna have them
people
all in
are
the
on
same room?
Zoom. People are on Zoom.
I don't do the agenda. I'm here to help set the room.
So how are they going to
We're
do
all
it?
part of the same team. We're all on the same team. So I'm just trying to find out where we are.
This one set up.
Okay, you want this room clear to set it.
This room is already clear.
Okay, so all I need to know is all those people who are
Are
on
gonna
at
be-
11:45.
they're gonna be
Can
in
we
here.
broadcast to them that it's delayed?
No, they're going to log into this session and he's going to start, because he's emceeing that session. So
No,
they're-
my session is 11:45.
This the only way to
he's
do
going
it.
to combine the
Talk to
sessions.
Andy.
That's what he's about.
Combine the
That's
sessions.
what he's doing right now.
Y'all gotta go over and talk to Andy. No chairs on stage? Lunch and no chairs on stage?
No chairs on stage. A table.
A table with no chairs.